So I'm gonna put it right now, guys, the video, and we're gonna be pausing the video in the parts that I consider important. And remember, the homework is the line time. And the line time, as I explained, you can come here and look for any type of example. Just as an example, you don't have to copy this. Look, you can show an example of ancient Greece, a period of time. As you see here, like this one. And up, for example, if you put Mycenaean period, like right here, look, Mycenaean period. If you see here, you up on Mycenaean period, guys, you can put an arrow and start putting the facts up. You can start putting facts up, the most important facts in each period of time. The base that you're gonna have is just based on the period. For example, the Mycenaean period, which is the other period that is next. Can you copy? After the Mycenaean period.
I don't remember, Mr.
In your notebook, where do you copy that? Look, the first one is this, the Credo-Mycenaean era. Then you're gonna see that as time, and we're gonna start with another.
The rise of Athens and
The
Sparta.
rise of Athens and Sparta, then
The Greco-Persian Wars.
the Greco-Persian War, what else?
The Golden Age.
The Golden Age of Athens, right? Well, so in that, we're gonna continue seeing the video, guys. We're gonna finish it right now. And you're gonna make the line time, okay? And I'm gonna place the homework. Guys, but first of all, do you understand how you have to make it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Jafet, do you understand how you have to make it?
Yes.
So you put, for example, Creto-Mycenaean era. You put a line, Creto-Mycenaean, and up, you put another arrow.
For information.
You put information about that era.
Yes.
Facts. You can make it in computer or you can make it handwriting, it doesn't matter. And if you can put images, guys, perfect.
In our notebook, Mister.
Yes, you can make it in your notebook. Remember, if you can do images, it's better. It's better, okay? You can take out pictures, whatever. You have to be creative because this is kind of exam, okay? So it will be worth it by good points, okay? So please try to make your best, not make a mess. Try to write in order, to write very beautifully. You can do with construction paper, whatever. You have to be creative. That's the way you're gonna get your. If I see that you only put a pen to everything, well, that's not creativity. You have to be creative. Okay, guys, we're gonna continue.
Allied treasury. Without these funds, the Greek class.
Are you listening? Yes? The sound of the video?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna go lower.
Classics wouldn't have existed at all. No sculpture, drama, philosophy. The strategist and orator Pericles became the head of this new financial center. He concluded a 30 years peace with Sparta, restored the Acropolis that had been sacked by the Persians, and extended fortress walls to the city harbor. This was rebuilt to a grid layout, a forerunner to New York. While the sculptor Phidias was immortalizing Greece in stone, the philosopher Anaxagoras expressed an outrageous idea that the sun was not the god Hellas, but a burning body equal in size to Peloponnese. A whole great culture was created in half a century.
Okay, the other era, look. Another period of the Peloponnesian War. This is one of the most important wars, guys, of ancient Greece times.
Sparta and its allies grew jealous of Athens' prosperity. A Cold War had smoldered between them ever since the victory over the Persians, and things warmed up in 431 BC. The Spartans and their allies besieged impregnable Athens. Its inhabitants took cover behind the walls. The grain supply from Africa was cut off, and those shipments that made it through brought either typhus or the plague.
So guys, the Peloponnesian War is basically the war between Sparta and Athens. Remember that Athens have the Parthenon, and the Parthenon is like a bank. It's like a bank, more like a modern bank. So what does that mean? That Athens, do you remember what does the other allies do to create a same military force? Do you remember that explanation? What do they do? What do they pay? They pay like a bill to whom? To Athens. Remember that they pay a bill to Athens to maintain the military force that they were having. So that means that Athens starts growing in power, in economic power. So when this happens, Sparta, all the allies they were having, looked at Athens, were having a lot of money, and that means power. So they were getting like envy. So in this moment, they start with the Peloponnesian War, 431 before Christ, 431 before Christ.
Even Pericles himself perished. He was replaced by demagogues. Whoever promised the most was elected strategist. So Alcibiades, the unscrupulous nephew of Pericles, became the head of the Athenian armed forces. He proposed a short but victorious war. Let's pack it all in and sail for Sicily, as if the altercations with Sparta weren't enough. The fleet was ready, but something inexplicable happened the night before the voyage. All around the city, someone smashed off the most prominent parts of the Hermes statues. Alcibiades was accused of provocation, but he fled to Sparta to beg political asylum. The chief strategist then proceeded to advise the enemy. The allies began to drop out one by one. Athens agreed to a humiliating peace with the condition of demolishing its defensive walls. They had targeted Hermes, and the might of Athens was crushed. On the bright side, this was the heyday for Greek tragedy and comedy. Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides.
So in this time, guys, what's happening in the war, these three men that you already have known, they are considered as the most important comedists and tragedists. So do you remember what was the meaning of tragedy?
A lot of people die.
Well, it's like a story in which the end is a fatal ending, in which people die at the end of the story. And this story was, look, if you see here back in the background, it's like a type of theater. Well, it's like a type of theater of ancient Greece. So they were making plays about comedy and also tragedies.
The three great tragedians and the comedic playwright Aristophanes.
Aristophanes is one of the most, well, he's considered the father of the comedy. The father of the comedy. Look, this is the father of the comedy, of the literature that is considered as comedy. Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides, they are considered tragedies, okay?
Created plays that are still relevant today. And yet they penned them in the full confidence that the first production would be the last, as was the way in theater at the time. Classical drama was always about current events, and while things may have been getting worse in the city, culture flourished.
Okay, this is one of the last important periods of time in which the Greece Empire was still arising. Alexander the Great. Do you know what, well, in Spanish, the name of this man is? Alejandro Magno. Alexander the Great.
There was no winner in the Peloponnesian War. All Greek cities fell into decline. On the other hand, unexpected surprises would come from the Macedonians, distant relatives of the Greeks who had always been regarded as semi-barbarians. And then even the great philosopher Aristotle went to work in Macedonia as tutor to an extremely talented boy. The boy's father was Philip II. It was he who built up the Macedonian kingdom, defeating a Greek coalition. He almost managed to unite Greece in order to fight the Persians. But Philip was killed, and his son, known to us as Alexander the Great, blazed his way through Asia, broke the army of the Persian king Darius, but still refused to turn back, reaching India. Thus, a new world was born, the Hellenistic world. Greek and Eastern culture blended to form a new hope, as cities by the name of Alexandria sprang up in almost every land, though without any democracy. All officials in Asia spoke Greek, and new Oriental gods became neighbors with the old Greek ones at Mount Olympus.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna explain this part. In this moment, why Alexander the Great is so important. Do you listen that Macedonia was like a kingdom that was getting only by barbarians. They were considered barbarians. Do you remember who were considered barbarians?
The people who
doesn't speak what? Greek.
Greek.
They didn't speak Greek. So Macedonia was another place of Greek, also of Greek Empire. But what happens? As you see, Philip was the father of Alexander the Great. Philip Macedon was the father, was the king. But he were killed. He was killed in a battle. So what does that happen? As the kingdoms, what happened when the father died? The son arises king. So who was his son? Alexander the Great. And Alexander the Great was taught by whom? By whom was taught Alexander the Great? Who was the tutor or the teacher? What philosopher? They say a philosopher there. Aristotle. Aristotle was like his teacher. So this man is one of the most important battleists or conquerors. So that means that he conquered almost all Asia. All the continent of Asia that we see nowadays, well, he conquered. He battled against Darius III, against Darius. So when he battled him in Asia, he won all the battles. There is a myth, guy. Well, it's not a myth, but the history says that all the battles that Alexander the Great fought, he won it. He won all of them. He never lose a battle. So what does that mean? That he was a really intelligent, somebody that was conquering all the Asia parts. So as you see here in the map, guys, all of this, also Athens, he conquered Athens, he conquered Sparta. So all of this that you see here, guys, all Asia, all this part that you see in yellow was part of the new Greek Empire. Who was the leader of this new Greek Empire?
Alexander.
Alexander the Great. What does the myth say about him? That he never
lose a battle.
lose a battle. That's what the history says, that he never lose a battle. So he fight here against Darius, that was like the king of Asia, and he destroyed everything. He destroyed everything. And he built also the first libraries. That is an important fact. He built the first library around the world that was in Alexandria. That's a library in Alexandria.
All officials in Asia spoke Greek, and new Oriental gods became neighbors with the old Greek ones at Mount Olympus. Alexander was proclaimed a god himself in Egypt. Protocol obliged all to follow Eastern tradition and fall at his feet. We can only wonder at how this might have ended. Greek decrees have been found urging the spread of Buddhism, but Alexander died young. Babylon, the place of his death, had become the capital of an empire.
This is important. important, guys, because Babylon, do you know that appears in the Bible? And Babylon was the capital of the Alexandrian Empire. What do you think is called the Alexandrian Empire?
Because Alexander made that
was-
empire.
Exactly, because he was like the leader. Look, the Greeks spread the Buddhism. This is important for culture, general culture. So how does Buddhism spread? Well, because remember in this continent, guys, in Asia, Egyptians, Indians, nowadays, who are like the most common Buddhists? The people that practice Buddhism, the Indians.
The Indian.
So, why? Because all this part was part of the Alexandrian Empire. And what does that mean? That the culture of the Greeks, the gods like Zeus, like Serapis, they like mix with the culture also of the Egyptians. Do you know some god of the Egyptians? Do you know? Or you have remembered a god that the Egyptians have?
This
Horus.
Horus. What other? Isis. Also is another of their gods. So Eloise is also, they have another like mix of different gods. So what does that mean? When the Greek Empire conquered India, all in general, Asia continent, they mix their cultures. What does that mean? Well, their gods mix with the Indian, Egyptians, all their gods gets joined and create a new culture.
Which immediately began to crack at the seams.
But when Alexander died, what do you think it happens with the empire? The empire starts like breaking into different parts because they were not having more one leader. Look, are you seeing that they start making like lines here, like dividing the map? Well, that means that the empire starts dividing itself. What do you think it will happen with this empire if they start dividing themselves? Their force will increase or decrease? They will be weak, exactly, because they will not be that hard as if they are joined. So what do you think it will happen with this empire? In a time it would fall. It would fall, the empire would fall. So after Alexander the Great death, the empire starts going down. Look, epoch. This is the last part, mostly of the last part. From Rome to Byzantium. Which is the other empire that comes after the Greek? Guys, I already explained this.
The Rome.
The Roman Empire, exactly. So after the Greek comes the Roman Empire, and that will be our third and fourth bimester topic. The Roman Empire and all their leadership, all the leadership that they have. Look, 220 before Christ to 104.53 after the death of Christ. After Christ, okay? I'm gonna ask you this. You already saw in social studies. Why 1453 is so important, guys, in our date of history? What happens in the 1453?
What?
What happens in that date, 1453, that year? What happened? What happened with the Roman Empire?
The Roman Empire get lost.
Fall. They fall exactly in Constantinople. You remember that in social studies? Like Constantino? Well, that happens in that moment. 1453, the Roman Empire decreased and get weak, and they lose one part of the empire.
While the successors of Alexander warred with one another, a new ambitious power was growing in the West. In 100...
What place is this, guys? This boot that you see over here.
Italy.
Italy. So when the Greek Empire, look how they are putting like the graphic that they are getting smaller and smaller. What does that mean? That the Greek Empire were going down. So which empire was starting going like a rising? Which empire was arising? In here, in the yellow part.
Rome.
The Roman Empire, exactly. In what time? In 220. Look, 220. It was the time.
In 46 BC, the Romans conquered Greece, and in 30 BC, they conquered the last stronghold of Hellenism, Egypt. But Greek culture was victorious even here. Spread by the Romans, it finally conquered the world. Romans began to read the Iliad and Odyssey in Greek, followed by the Greek New Testament too. In 330, Emperor Constantine built a new city on the site of the old Greek colony of Byzantium, Constantinople. This was the starting point for the history of the...
Look, in this point of time, 395 after Christ. Let's be clear with that, after Christ. Look how was the Roman Empire. All that you see in yellow, all of that. So they start conquering. Look, Athens was already Roman Empire, was part of the Roman Empire. So the king Byzantino, the king Byzantine built a new big city. Was called what place? Constantinople. Look, this place was like what place in Greek Empire? What was the famous place in Greek Empire? The famous city in
Rome.
the Greek Empire? No, in Greek Empire.
Athens.
Athens. So now, what will be like the most important part of Rome? Look, they were having like two types of, like two sides of the empire. If you see here, guys, do you see that they have different colors?
Mhm.
Well, the one that say Rome, that was one part of the empire. One is considered as Occidental, and the other is considered as Oriental. So the one that you see here, I'm gonna write it here. This part, guys, is called Occidental. Occidental Empire, Roman Empire. All this part that you see here. And this one that you see here is the Oriental. The Oriental Empire. So this was the two sides of the, but they are the same empire. The only thing is that, do you think that it's possible to come to leadership all this place by only one king?
No.
Impossible. So they were having two kings, like two leaders. So one was Byzantium. So right, please, this is important. Look, Byzantium. Byzantium was the king of the Oriental Empire. Gonna see later which one is.
Byzantine Empire, which extended the life of Greek culture another 1,000 years, leaving us the
I'm gonna erase that.
weird Russian alphabet, for instance. Did you like our video?
Okay, we'll stay until that part of the video, guys, because it ends over there. Why? Because now, from this on, we can start with the Roman Empire. What happened with the Roman Empire? So what can we say that what was the main cause of the decreasing of the Greek Empire? Who were the ones that make the own decay of this empire? What do you think was the moment in which they start decaying? In what moment, guys, they start decaying as an empire, as a Greek empire? What was the causes of their decay?
The battles.
Yes, the battles, but first of all, there is more than one reason, but one of the most important reasons, their leader. What happened with the leader of them?
He dies.
He died. Who was their leader?
Alexander.
Alexander. What happened after Alexander's death? With
The empire get weak.
Why? What they start doing? What they start doing? That you see that it starts come a lot of lines and all that stuff. What happened in that moment? They start dividing. They start dividing the place. So that makes them weak. that makes them weak. So with that content, guy, you can do resume, a big resume and a good resume in a lifetime of all the important facts of fish. Guys, I want you to focus on literature also. If you see names of philosophers that write, also put it in the time that they write. It appears down in the bar, okay? You follow only the bar, follow the bar. All the events by the bar, okay? The important things. Please make a good job because that will be worth by a lot of points. I will not give you all the points if you don't do a good job. I'm gonna leave you guys. What time? I'm gonna leave you until next week. I'm gonna ask that on, I'm gonna ask it on Friday. On Friday of the next week, so you have a lot of time. Please work, start making like an eraser of all the facts that you are taking out from the video. I'm gonna send you right now the video for you to see it another time if you want to see it, and basically to make your home. So is that clear, guys?
Yeah, Mr.
Yes.